Yes, come on up. Absolutely.
Get my identity back here.
There we go. And it's so easy, isn't it, to know who you are? Okay, so Diane, what is it that you want, first of all?
I want to be able to have all my work done and complete easily and effortlessly so that when I go on vacation, I don't have to wear myself out getting there.
Okay, all right, so to have everything done easily, effortlessly, and you're ready to go on vacation without having had to work so hard at the last minute. Okay, and what stops you from having this?
Having lots of clients who need lots of work.
Okay.
And that's a resource I want to keep.
Right, obviously, yes. Okay, so you have lots of clients who need lots of work. And so, now, by the way, the next thing that I'm thinking of in my mind is, at what moment in time does the limitation occur? So, is it while she's seeing her clients? Is it while she's working to get ready for her trip? Or when does the limitation actually occur? The limiting pattern that we would want to change. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what comes first?
What was
When
that?
does it start?
Yeah,
does it
Jim,
start?
so when does it start?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very often if you're having difficulty figuring out, well, where's the place to tap, very often a key is to go earlier in the sequence. What starts this whole process rolling? So then Diane, where exactly is it that you want to experience a change? Is it when you are scheduling your clients? Is it when you're planning for your trip? In what context specifically do you want to experience a change?
Let me answer it this way. About from anywhere from a week to 3 or 4 days before I actually leave, what I notice is having so many things to do that I'm working long hours. I'm not enjoying getting ready to leave.
Okay.
So I would say that impact starts to happen anywhere from a week to 3 or 4 days before I actually leave.
Okay, that's when you notice the problem and you start to feel overwhelmed or there's too much to do.
Yeah.
Okay, now, so what stops you from starting on all those things to do 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time? What stops you from doing that?
That the work actually, the particular work that I'm talking about is our environmental work. And my work can only start when my clients are done with their part of their work. And we have lots of clients that are doing, especially this time of year, their work in this time period. And so it all kind of comes in at once.
Okay, so the work all comes in at once. So do you want to change the way you schedule those clients, or do you want to change the way you respond to having so much work, or do you want to just, when it's time to get ready for vacation, just put less effort into the packing process, or leave out some of the steps that you normally have taken in the past, or what is it that you really want to have happen as a result of the changing the belief?
The thing I want most is to have all of my clients continue to be fully satisfied with our work, get the same high quality of work, and for that to happen in the time frame that within the time frame that has me also be able to take care of my needs.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
We're zeroing in on it, yeah. So you want to have your clients happy and satisfied within a time frame that allows you to take care of your needs as well. Okay. So what stops you from going ahead and just doing that?
What stops me is that their schedules say in their schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And they do tell me when the work is coming, and the work does come in.
Mhm.
And it's just that much work.
Okay, so it's just that much work. Then what prevents you from scheduling your vacation at a time when it doesn't coincide?
Well, this is a vacation for me.
Uh-huh,
And so it's scheduled when it is.
right.
And usually this happens when I schedule 2 weeks to go biking somewhere. Well,
Okay.
that happens, that I do that in January
Mm-hmm.
so that I can get on the trips. And so and that I do that so that I actually get my vacations, because if I don't schedule them way ahead of time, they actually don't even happen.
Okay,
I could keep busy all the time, and I'm not willing to do that. So
Okay.
I've scheduled the vacations and demarcated that time and said, that's mine.
okay.
It's actually the first big step for me.
Okay, great. So you do schedule your vacations in advance, and if somebody said, I needed you to work during this 2-week period when you'd already scheduled a vacation, how would you respond?
How do I respond?
Yes.
I say, well, get it done. Because I'm not willing to not have
Okay.
my clients, many of whom I've had 5, 6, 7, 8 years,
Right.
not be able to come to us and we do better work than anybody else. They can't go anywhere.
Okay. All right, and
They could,
but they wouldn't get
they wouldn't, yeah.
the same results. Okay, so even if you've already scheduled a vacation, you will do client work at that time if the client needs something done then.
If I can't reschedule it, and sometimes I can and sometimes I can't.
Okay, so what then? Wait, actually, I don't want to jump ahead with a change thing. So, excuse me. Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting us know. So, I'm still kind of zeroing in on where you want the change. Do you want the change to happen in terms of saying no to your clients more often, or do you want the change to be that you are happy and comfortable with scheduling clients during your vacation time and just squeezing in a vacation whenever you can?
Well, I'd like to have it all, to be real frank. I mean, that's the dilemma.
Mhm.
I mean, I really want to do the work for the people that I really like,
Mm-hmm.
who are my clients. And
Okay.
I also want to be able to take my vacations. So
Mm-hmm.
I've tried backtracking and 3 weeks ahead of time, calling all my clients and letting them know that I'm going to be out of town, and that works fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
And not always, because they'll have something come up and say, well, Diane, you're the only one that can, your company's the only one that can do this for us. Could you get this done for us? Or
Right.
what happened for us this summer was, and often happens for us, thankfully enough, is we have our work schedule all set up, and I have my team all set up, and then someone calls and says, you were referred to us by another one of my favorite clients. Could you get some work done for us? And I could say no, but it would mean losing a potentially good client that we'd like to form another working relationship with.
Oh, okay. So, and now this is going to be a funny question. So what I want you to do is to kind of check inside. It's not something that you would intellectually agree with, I'm sure. Okay. But just
I've intellectualized it as much as I can.
yeah, yeah, and that's how it often is with these things. So this is more a matter of checking in for, do you, on a kind of a gut level, have a sense that it's possible for you to both say yes to your clients whenever they need you and also to have vacations whenever you need them?
Yes.
Okay, so you have this belief that that's a possibility. Okay, and now, so just taking an aside, so what I'm getting at here is that possibly it's the outcome itself that's the limitation. That she wants to, in effect, have two things happening at the same time, which of course we know can't happen. But just because we know that intellectually doesn't mean that that's what's operating on a more unconscious level. So, so thank you for checking that out.
You're not going to tell me I can't have it all.
So I'm not going to tell you that you can have everything at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to tell you you probably can't have. But so you have a part, in a sense you could say a part of you believes that you can both say yes to your clients all the time, and you can also have your vacations when you want them. And you know, the other part of you, intellectually, you know that that's not the case, but yet you've been operating as though it were the case. Now, so I've got a conclusion there. So that's what, now that I have a piece of it, I'm going to look for what piece do I have. I've got something that she's concluded. So I'm going to ask you, Diane, now, what, and again, since this is a kind of a gut level thing, check inward for what is it that leads you to believe that you can say yes to your clients all the time and have your vacations whenever you want them?
Because I have in the past, and how I do it is by really hunkering down and working a lot of hours and delegating a lot to my people before I leave.
Okay.
That's how I've accomplished it.
Right. And you said you don't want that either, to work so hard at the last minute.
I'd like to have a strategy that would assist me, or to see if there's some other belief I have that's in the way of my, because I think we did some work and I think I have a sense of a strategy that could be more useful than the one I have. And that's an intellectual. And what sparked me to come up here was, is there a belief underneath that I haven't touched on that would make it even easier and have even more resources in that strategy if that belief weren't in my way?
Okay. So what is it that you want to be doing? What is the strategy that you already know that you want to be putting into place? Or at least you think you want to be putting into place?
Okay. To call, to send emails out and then do a follow-up phone call, which I haven't done. It means to all of my clients at least 3 weeks before I take any major vacation. And let them know when I'm going to be gone, ask them for anything that they think or even possibly think they might want from us, letting them know that we want to be sure that everything's scheduled before I leave, because I'm literally going to be out of the country and can't be reached.
Okay. All right.
So I think that can work.
Okay, so you have
if we don't have a lot of new work come in.
Okay. So you have a strategy for alerting your clients 3 weeks in advance of a vacation. And then you said, if we don't have a lot of new work come in. So that raises a red flag for me. So she has some strategies to implement to hopefully prevent this kind of problem from arising. But then my next question is, what are you going to do if it happens anyway? If you do have that new work that comes in a week before you're scheduled to leave town, then, you know, how do you want to respond to that situation?
Well, my first response would be to let them know that we're actually going to be gone and we can't do it until I come back. And sometimes that works, and sometimes they actually need something within the next 2 weeks, and that's where it's difficult for me.
Okay. And difficult in what way?
Difficult in that I will then, my first response is to go, okay, this is my schedule. I can put this many more hours in and this much more time in, and I could still get this done for them.
Okay.
And that's my normal strategy is like, okay, listen, I had a little bit, I always do leave a little some time. And given that I do, it, for the most part, if I were to look at my history, fills with things that need to be done.
Okay. So now, do you want to change that? Do you want to change the response you have to the situation that when even though you have a vacation coming up, they call and they really need something and they really cannot reschedule it, that you'll go ahead and find a way to do it anyway?
I'd like to have something happen that I haven't thought of before that's a resource so that I can support them and give them what they need, and that we do start our relationship and it goes on from there because I've found a way to do something I hadn't thought I could do.
Okay, so you want to find additional ways to satisfy them that takes less work from you.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's good.
Okay. So that's what you want. Now, is there anything that stops you from exploring other possible ways of satisfying your client?
Well, one of them is just being too busy to think about it and just going back to the old way of doing things because it worked before.
Okay. So when you're too busy to think about it and you already have something that works, you'll use that because you don't have time to think of something else to do. Okay, which makes sense, right? That's what I would do as well in that situation. Well, let me ask this. When that happens, when you use your old strategy because you don't have time to think of a new one, is that a problem for you in some way to do that?
It just isn't a very useful strategy anymore because then I get overloaded.
You get overloaded.
But as you put it in that context, I'm fortunate enough that one of the people that's on my team is also a master practitioner.
Uh-huh.
So maybe what I need to do is just call her, call Barbara, and say, I need 10 minutes. Can you coach me through this? And if that 10 minutes saved me several hours, I'd be much better for doing that.
Okay. All right. So here, now you weren't supposed to change that quickly. We haven't gotten to that step. So just to kind of, by the way, unpack what just happened. So by presupposition, Diane had we didn't actually express it explicitly because in asking for what the belief was, she went ahead and changed it. But she is presupposing that she has had the belief that it would take too much time to strategize and find another way to do things. Okay? And so that was her conclusion. And so I'm just curious, with that old belief that you used to have, how did you determine, or how did you conclude that that was the case? What was your evidence that you didn't have enough time to strategize for another way to do things?
There was just so many things in front of me that I just did them. I just did them.
Great, great. Okay, that's very clear. So when there are so many things in front of me, that means I don't have enough time to strategize for another way to go about getting it done. Okay? And so she's gone ahead and changed that to when there are all these things in front of me, I have the 10 minutes to call somebody up and go over a possible strategy to use as an alternative. So she's already changed the belief for us here. Now, I guess that's all we're doing for this particular exercise. As we go along, when we know what belief she currently has and what belief she wants to have instead, she may have already changed it for us, but we could also add some additional things to kind of reinforce the new belief. And actually, since we've already done the verb forms, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of that. So now, Diane, having already reached this realization that you have 10 minutes to re-strategize and come up with another plan, thinking about what it will be like to have already implemented this 10-minute replanning and re-strategizing, are you excited about the possibilities that can emerge from this new way of approaching having a lot of things to do?
You can't say it fast enough. I'm already.
Yeah, I know. She's way ahead of me.
I might be glad about that.
She's way ahead of me.
I knew I just needed to get, I wasn't clear what the belief was. And once you were clear with me about what it was, then it was fairly easy to think about what might be possible.
Okay, right. And as you could tell, it took me a little while to zero in on it also, because with the context she originally presented, there were a lot of possibilities for what would be a useful thing to do. Is it that she has a belief that she can just say yes, 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 and still take her vacation? It seemed that way at first, but yet when we explored that a little bit more, she said, well, no, that's not quite it either. And so, it took us a little while to get there. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, just to give you a demonstration, Because I think that it's useful for you to have a variety of kinds of demonstrations. Having ones that are a little more challenging, that might take a while to sort through, is useful because then you have a demonstration of that. And having something that is more streamlined and simple might also be useful to get more the basic structure of eliciting the belief to be changed. So I'm wondering if somebody has an area of limitation in which your intuition tells you that this could be a pretty simple thing to get to the bottom of. And it could be either participant or coach for this purpose. Yes?
I don't know if this applies, but I believe I have a bad memory.
You believe you have a bad memory. Come on up. What did she say again? What was that? Oh, is that the one? Oh, good. Excellent. It was in the kitchen. You know, I had that thought, actually. I was going to check in the next break if it was there. Liam had it. That's right. I took it off in there.
Mom, where are you?
Okay. Thanks for finding that. Okay. And Jennifer, is your name right?
Yeah.
Okay. So restate again, would you? What is it that you want?
I'd like to be able to retain information from training sessions, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I find is that I tend to have a feeling about the situation, like it was, I had a good feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but then I don't remember the details, and from that I form this belief that I have a bad memory, and even like things that happened in my past, I'd often rely on my boyfriend to point out to me, like, what happened then, you know, so I just think I have a bad memory.
Okay.
I thought I did.
Is your mute on?
Is that okay?
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so you believe you've concluded that you have a bad memory, and what that's based on is that sometimes in a seminar you end up with a feeling without having all the details.
Exactly, or even, the important details. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I get lots of good feelings from all these trainings, but then it's like actually assimilating information. It's, even right after something's happened, I might not be able to tell somebody what actually. So as a trainer, it's a bit of a stretch for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's particularly regarding the details and being
Yeah.
able to tell somebody the details of what happened.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so she's actually given me the A and the B of her beliefs. So since sometimes after a training I have a feeling without being able to recall the specific details from the training, I have concluded that I have a bad memory, right? So now what I want to do is to check for, is this a belief that we would want to change outright? Is it a belief we'd want to just tweak? So how limiting is this belief is what I'm going to check for now. So what I'm wondering is, are there also times when you go to a training and you do remember the details later?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I'm like,
So,
I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Yeah, when I go through even different kinds of trainings, yeah, I just seem to come up with that as a pretty consistent.
okay, this consistent pattern?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so having checked that, now I want to see for, is this a belief that we really want to change? Do we want her to believe that because after a training she has a feeling and doesn't have the details, that this means that she has a really good memory? Now, we wouldn't want to have her believe that. So let's check something else. I mean, it could be tweaked. Instead of bad memory, we could say, my memory could use improvement, or, it could be tweaked a little bit, but I want to just check around this context a little bit more. And so having currently this perception of yourself and your memory, does this stop you from doing anything that you want to do?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, for example?
Well, just, in tracking process, and oftentimes as part of what I do, it's to either help someone like through an exercise, or just to remember the chunks and what happened before, and to create continuity. And even in my own learning, it's like I feel like I have this experience, but I don't retain the knowledge. So it's frustrating for me. There's a few other beliefs I could form from that as well. So
Right,
yeah.
right. So, so now, what I'm noticing though is that given that you are here as a coach, you are a trainer, you work with clients as well, and so given that you do all of that, how is it possible that you are remembering to do the patterns sufficiently that you are using what you've learned in all those contexts?
I think part of it is doing it myself, having an experience of it. That helps me to remember. And it's just that sometimes, like, I'll get to a point in a process and I'm not quite sure, so I'll just make it up. But there's times where, because I understand certain structure, so I can have that flexibility. But sometimes I just want to know how, say, someone else did that process, or I'm not quite sure if what I did is, the best outcome for my client or who I'm working with. So it would just, I want more
Oh, okay.
ability to retain more details.
Okay, all right.
If that answers
So,
your question.
yeah, it does.
Okay.
So one thing I'm exploring is, would it be ecological to change her belief to that I have a decent memory, or I have a pretty good memory, even though there are some things that I have difficulty remembering. And so in asking her about that, that gives me the idea that, that could be a place where it could be a belief to be changed. That since she does remember enough of her NLP to apply it in these different areas and get results, it would be ecological in my book to change this belief to, just because I am not remembering details, I still have a pretty good memory, right? Yes?
It also sounds as if she has an unconscious confidence in what she's doing. So some part of her does remember, even if she doesn't consciously remember it.
Yes, exactly. So there's the unconscious memory strategy going on as well. Yeah. So the more I ask questions, the more happy I am with this belief as a place that could be changed, could be addressed. So one more question I would have for you is, are you aware of anything that could possibly stop you from remembering those details?
I think that because I'm really kinesthetic, that I know other people have other remembering strategies that seem more efficient, perhaps. And so I'm thinking that might be helpful for me to develop, my submodalities, like more visual and more auditory.
Okay.
Like, I have those submodalities, but for some reason in the remembering stuff, I seem to just go with the feeling.
Okay.
So I just became aware of that actually today.
Okay, so would it be fair to say, as a possible belief, try this on, and if it doesn't fit right, then correct me.
Okay.
So because I'm very kinesthetic, I can't remember details.
Yeah, that's a pretty, because actually what you were saying is really, I believe that there's some unconscious competence running. But there's times where I need to consciously be able to pull that information, and I'm wondering if it's in that kinesthetic coding that I miss out on being able to retrieve the information. I'm just so in my body or something,
Okay.
So, I think that would work.
So that would be another place to tap. Both of those areas, to me, would be useful. Both her belief about her memory, just because she doesn't remember details, doesn't have to mean that she has a bad memory overall. And also that being kinesthetic could stop her from remembering details. That would be another potential place to tap, a cause effect. And one more thing I'm wondering about is, because you're kinesthetic, how is it possible that could stop you from also remembering things visually and auditorily? how, and again, here, check more with what do you sense on a gut level as opposed to what makes sense intellectually. How does being kinesthetic prevent you from also remembering the pictures and the sounds? And just what pops up?
Well, the first thing that popped up was that because I'm so in my own internal experience, that I'm not external enough to, I'm not quite sure really, but something like that. That's just, I'm so in a feeling that I'm just in that and in that experience and not.
Okay. And what stops you from letting your awareness go more external? Again, gut level, what stops you? What would happen if you went more external?
I think I'd realize how easy it is for me to actually learn and pick up this information. Or I think there's something around that and not wanting to appear smart or something like that.
So if I let myself be aware externally and learn the information easily, that would cause me to appear smart.
Right.
And if you appeared smart, how would that be a problem?
I could be a threat to some people, or they would reject me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I appear smart to others, they will reject me or be threatened. Okay. Now, by the way, I'm looking at her nonverbals as well. And
I realize that.
yeah.
There's nowhere to hide.
No, there isn't. Thank goodness sometimes.
Really good.
And so this is another place to tap. And of all the places we've explored so far, this is where I would be inclined to start. Not that the other ones aren't also important, but going by the nonverbals here, you know, this is where I would start.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Actually, before you go away, let me switch microphones with you. If we could take a short microphone switching break. I have no idea where we're going to end up, half the time, or at least half the time. Somebody comes up and says something, and I still have no idea.
It's off.
Oh, it's off now. Let's turn it on. And how's that? We're on? Okay, great. So I was just saying, with this material, somebody comes up and says something, and I still have no idea half the time where we're going to end up, because the structure could go in so many different ways. And let me give you some ideas of what things I'm kind of going for as I'm getting for the belief to be changed. Yes?
Sorry, it turned off. All right, something happened.
Something else happened, okay. The green light is showing.
Okay, is it on mute?
It is on mute. Okay. There we go. I was saying. So what I want to go over now is what are some of the things that I'm paying attention to that leads me to a belief that I think is really worth changing. One thing that I pay attention to that I think you noticed in both demonstrations is I'm paying attention to, is the person more working at an intellectual level or more working at kind of a gut level? You know, if somebody's more dissociated from the belief and they're kind of like trying to figure it out with me, figuring things out is such a useful skill that we all have developed to a considerable degree, or we would not be in this room, that it's tempting to just apply it in all contexts. However, for this, the context of being a client or being the person who desires a change, it often works better to let go of figuring it out and just really step into the situation and notice what happens, and also be willing, which both of people I was demonstrating with did a great job of demonstrating, being willing to say something that doesn't make sense intellectually. You know, that on an intellectual level you know better, but yet that's what's running the show oftentimes. And so if somebody says something and it seems just all very logical and all makes perfect sense, then I think, well, maybe we haven't quite gotten it yet. Or maybe we have, but oftentimes we have not in that case. Now, one thing that I also do is I want to look for a context in which the belief is actually running. This is part of how to help them associate into it, is to find a time of it actually occurring. So with Diane, I was asking her, so is it that you want the change at the time that you're scheduling, or do you want the change at the time that you're working with clients, or at what point in time is it that you want to have this change? That's one of the ways in which I want to pinpoint the moment in which the belief is running. Because a moment later, it's too late. It's gone. So you want to find the moment at which the limiting belief is running. Now, another thing that I want to do in an effort to assist them in stepping into that moment is by using nonverbals of being associated. So with Jennifer, thank you. With Jennifer, I had the sense that we were close but not quite there. I shifted my nonverbals to to being more of what I would call associated. I leaned forward a little bit. I softened my voice a little bit. I just allowed myself to get more into my body. And my goal there was to also then invite Jennifer to step more into her body and into her experience. Because that's where the answer is. It's in their experience. It's not just up here. So those are a couple of keys. And then also, just in general principle, looking earlier in the sequence. If I have something and it seems as though, well, the problem has already started to happen by the time we've gotten this far, then even if the belief would be useful to change, I'm going to find out, well, there's something that happened earlier that allowed this quote problem or limitation to even be there at all. So going earlier in the sequence can be useful. So those are some of the things that I like to do in eliciting the belief to be changed. Do you have any questions or yes?
Say again the part about going earlier in the belief.
Going earlier in the sequence. So for example, in the case of Jennifer, she was saying, well, because I don't remember these details, I conclude that I have a bad memory. And this would be a useful belief to be changed, because none of our memories is perfect. And there are plenty of things that I don't remember, and yet I can think of myself as having a reasonably okay memory. So and it seemed like she was maybe holding herself to an unrealistic standard in terms of, I have to be able to remember details as well as remembering other ways in order to think of myself as a person with a good memory. So I thought that could be a useful thing to change. And at the same time, I wanted to find out, well, what if we considered not remembering details as the B side, as the effect or response, B? What happens before that causes you then not to remember the details? And so she said, well, being a kinesthetic person causes me not to be able to remember the details. And so we're getting closer to it. And then it's at that point that I decided, well, let's get more. I felt like we were more at a conscious level. I wanted to ask her conversationally more, what's her gut feeling about it? And inviting somebody to say things that doesn't make sense can be really useful, I found. Because in general, at least in my experience, saying things that don't make sense don't always elicit a welcoming response from the other person. So if I have permission to say things that don't make sense, then I can say things that don't make sense with the best of them. But sometimes that permission is really a useful piece also. Okay, so let's take how about another 20 minutes of the exercise eliciting the belief to be changed. Now, notice, by the way, how useful it is. With Diane, once she was aware of what the belief was she wanted to change, it was already obvious what new belief she wanted to have, and it happened so fast that you almost missed it, right? So getting to the right place to tap, or the most useful place to tap, is really 90% of what you do, in my opinion, with this work. Also, in the case of Jennifer, if we had stuck with where we were to begin with, we could have gotten some useful change out of that. However, after digging a little bit more, how much more useful, is it to change the belief we ended up with? So it's worth spending a little bit of time digging in there and just exploring where is the most useful place to tap. One more example I want to give, I didn't run across this in this room, but sometimes I run across it, and I'll just give a totally made up example of it. If I give you the belief, well, when my boyfriend beats me up, that causes me to feel bad about myself. Or when my boyfriend beats me up, that causes me to feel bad. Now, this belief is clearly in the context of a limitation. Would you want to change it? Would you want to say, well, when my boyfriend beats me up, I feel great? No, right. So when you have a belief, really examine it. Even if it appears to be a statement of limitation, there's something limiting about it, really examine it. Do you want to change it? Would you rather change it so that A caused something else altogether, or A meant something else altogether? Or is this belief useful given the circumstances, and we need to find out some other belief earlier in the sequence that allowed the person to be in the situation that her boyfriend is beating her up, right? Okay, so go ahead then, 20 more minutes, and with all these exercises, pretty much all the exercises we do in here, what I invite you to do is to make the most use of your time possible. So generally speaking, I'd love it if you could do 2 or 3 rounds of the exercise if you have the time for it. Otherwise, if you spend a considerable time really doing a thorough job with one, and it takes that time to get to the bottom of it, that optimizes your learnings as well. So either way can be great, and just optimize the whole time for learnings in your group with whichever way fits. 20 more minutes, and then we'll get back and go to the next thing.